My name is Elena Brandt. I am with Florida State University. I do research in social psychology. I also this year started a project with a company called Toloka AI. So what I'm presenting to you today is like kind of my technological baby, and we're proudly partners with Cloud Research on like a couple of things. We're co-sponsoring this event, like giving grants, and also I'll mention Sentry, how we're planning to use it in Toloka. So this workshop, I'll try to make it interactive and get like as many questions as I can from you guys. This is going to be about a new tool that gives you access to a global pool of truly diverse participants outside the US and the UK. And teaser, I'll be giving away grants at the very end. So like if you sit through, you'll be able to kind of earn real research money. We'll quickly go over the term weird and why we refer to it every time we talk about participants outside the US, because it's kind of obvious for psychology, especially for social psychology, but I assume there are a lot of researchers here who don't do psychology, I don't necessarily know what that is. We'll talk a little bit about how crowdsourcing has helped us along the way and can still help us. Then I'll share some tricks and tips of international data collection, because I have some early adopters, about like 30 people who are trying the product right now, and like judging by what they're asking me, I know like what are the caveats and potential tricky places. And then I'll show you how to start and make a little live demo. Hopefully then we'll have time for Q&A. So first of all, about the problem itself, right? So we live in the West. I assume that pretty much everyone here lives either in the US or in a Western European country, right? And there has been a bunch of evidence since starting to appear since about like 2000s, that the West is very psychologically peculiar. Like there are a bunch of aspects of human psychology, and I'm sure that it can be the same about economics or like sociology, but in psychology we know that very basic stuff, including visual cognition, visual perception, moral reasoning, self-perception, and a bunch of other things are actually very different in Western people than they are outside the West. And there was a seminal article back in 2010 by 3 psychologists who actually introduced the term weird, and I find it a very elegant term, and this is probably why it became so popular, because as an acronym, WEIRD stands for Western, Educated, Industrialized, Rich, and Democratic. And it also like sums up in an acronym that says that like it's peculiar, it's unusual, right? Now, just a couple of examples so you get a flavor of that. So for example, there's this famous Mueller-Lyer illusion, right? This one in the left bottom corner. Usually people see it, the top arrow is a little shorter than the bottom one. And for a long time, it was considered that it's a universal thing across all of the people, until someone just tried running a cross-cultural research on that and found out that, well, yes, for example, Americans are very susceptible to this illusion, but not the rest of the world. And there are a lot of cultures, especially smaller scale societies, where people are just not susceptible to it. Well, kids maybe are, but not adults. Now, another thing is, for example, cooperativeness. So Western people are known to be very cooperative, and this is not news. What was news for researchers, though, was that, for example, non-Western samples, non-Western populations are kind of prone to something that is known as antisocial punishment. So punishing other people for being too nice in a group. So this was something that was not even phenomenologically kind of known and recognized until such research was done on samples outside the US. So all of this is just to show that what we often think in science as applicable to people, like we found something about people, about humans, is actually about Americans. And guys in this like 2010 paper make a joke about how there's a top journal in my field, it's called Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. And they're saying, well, it actually should be called Journal of Personality and Social Psychology of American college students, because this is like the main kind of category of people that we're sourcing our data from, right? So, and there may be a lot of explanations as to why the West is so peculiar. And one of the obvious explanations is where the wealth is. So if you look at the global income distribution, well, this comes from 2013, but not a lot has changed, honestly, it's just a nice graph. So if you look at it and if you try to find us, we're not even on the graph. So chances are that everyone in this audience, like their annual household income is like way past even this point, right? So, and we consider like this particular point, we consider low income, right? So we consider that to be like kind of in our American sense of diversity, diversity is like people who are like below $20,000 a year, right? While the median household income in the world, and it is not a mistake, is around $2,000 and is expected to be $4,000 by 2035. So the way the rest of the world lives their lives is like completely different. The mortality risk, the ecological conditions, just the general like planning horizons. There are a lot of things how like the environment and the life make psychology, economics, and like a lot of other social kind of manifestations different. Now, the question is, so which share of participants is this like weird category? And the answer is quite flabbergasting. Although the Western populations represent about like 12% of the world population, as much as 96% of studies in psychology, I don't speak for other social sciences, but I suspect that it might be the case there too, are coming from this tiny slice of humanity. So like this article, again, it made this estimation throughout published articles, right? So, and I personally know a lot of researchers who want to do something about that. And I suspect that a lot of people who came here probably came here because they want to do something about that, right? We are interested in those people outside the Western countries. We would want to collect data from them, but the question is, how can you do that, right? So how can you go beyond weird? And before you all came in, we just started like sharing with kind of one of the researchers who's here. And so she, for example, had to hire an expensive marketing agency, right? A panel agency. You can try and find a collaborator, but if you think about that actionably, and you think about like, well, I want to tap Nigeria. So how do I find a collaborator in Nigeria? And it's not an easy question, because how do you do that, right? It's like networking costs. Now, panel agencies, they are an option, but they tend to be pretty expensive. I recently got a quote from like a panel agency, and it was just $12,000, and I cannot afford that without a grant, and grant takes time. So there's no way you can routinely test hypotheses outside the US samples, right? You can try Facebook ads, and I've actually met researchers when I went to conferences here who tried like Google ads or Facebook ads, but it's a whole thing to master, so not a lot of them actually do that. So each of these tools has barriers, and for now, researchers have to acknowledge the biasness of the samples and just keep going as they're going. But the thing is that if we talk about that in evolutionary terms, and I do evolutionary psych, so we have this term co-option, right? So like, we actually have been there before. So it used to be even worse. We used to base all of our science on just undergrads, or like at best faculty kids, just like marshmallow test is faculty kids, yay, so much better than just students. But we're past that, right? Because we co-opted an AI tool, and it was Mechanical Turk. We have to be very grateful to MTurk, because it helped us leap from student samples to samples of actual like people, right? Housewives, blue collar workers, real people. It is not technically representative in a rigorous sense, but it is much more representative than your typical college kids, right? Now, the tool that I'm presenting today, interestingly, is also originally an AI tool. And I guess it's just something natural, like a pattern about that, right? So like something gets created for like data collection for AI and then gets co-opted by researchers. And I think it's normal. So Toloka originally started as and it still is, a tool for data labeling. So in machine learning engineers usually need large amounts of data that is either just generated, people like upload something, for example, like they want to predict food size from a photo of a food, right? So like people would kind of upload their feed photos or something like that, or it has to be labeled. So people just assign a meaning to a certain data point. And MTurk is basically the same platform originally for data labeling. Toloka was too, but then this year, the story was actually that I just worked for them for a project, and then I just realized that they have access to this enormous pool of participants outside the Western countries. And I said, why don't you guys try and offer that to the academia? And they said, well, we don't have anyone with academic perspective to like help us do this. So I said, I'll do that. So the thing is that it's a tool that kind of benefits, like uses this big crowd of diverse participants from 80 countries, and almost none of those countries are Western. They're all in Latin America, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Africa, of course. And you can see some of the top countries, the ones with the like biggest audience down below on this slide. And then out of those like 100 something countries that Toloka had, what we did was we selected 80 countries where there would be a good overlap between the price that a researcher can comfortably pay and the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage imposed in this country, so that we never go like below it and we ethically pay the participants. Because just I know that it's important for social scientists to be responsible in how they pay participants. So right now it's a tool that is not only for AI, but also for research apparently. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to reshare my screen and show you very quickly a live demo of how you can create a project. The use case is we had to tweak the interface a little bit because the use case for data labeling is different from data collection for research purposes. So this link to this page is pretty much everywhere because we co-sponsor the event, and the organizers were nice and kind to place it pretty much everywhere. So you can reach it from pretty much anywhere, but I will also have this link on the slide. So this is a landing page that tells you all about the tool and what countries they're in and how you can apply for a grant, the fact that it's female founded and all this kind of stuff. But most importantly, it can actually take you to the tool. And once you create an account there, it gets pretty easy. So knowing that one of the most popular platforms to collect data on is Qualtrics, we made our first integration with Qualtrics. And depending on the length of your survey, and I have this survey that my actual one that is IRB approved, so I have a link here. I know that it tends to be a longer survey, so it takes people about 30 something minutes, and it measures their economic planning horizons. So what I do is I select a long survey here. Each survey template tells you how much you pay and how much a participant gets. So, and I know that it might not look like a big sum, right, for 30 minutes of work, but at the same time, gonna try to recall the world income distribution and realize that it's, first of all, it's more than any other companies are offering on the platform, and then for a lot of people, it's actually decent money that always are as or above their federal minimum wage. So if we choose this solution here, and oh, by the way, the prices are preset, so the researchers can go below them, even though not a lot of people try to exploit, but we just to be on the safe side. So I made a little kind of copied it for myself so that it's faster. I'll just show you how quick this can be. So if you have your Qualtrics link ready, and if you have your description that you can take from an IRB protocol, one thing that we require here, ask for here, is the IRB approved survey. So the thing that once you put in your title and the Qualtrics link, you can select any number of performers. They're called Tolokas on this platform. And let's say you want to do, for the demonstrational purposes, let's do 5. And then let's see if which countries we want to select. So I find that researchers who try this, they're oh, there are so many, I don't even know how to pick them. So I'm saying, well, maybe you want to just try a region first, right? Let's say you want to try, well, let's try a continent, let's try Africa, for example. So, or vice versa, you can try and see, oh, why don't I take one from Asia and one from, Eastern Europe, Ukraine, for example, and why not take Egypt in Africa and something in Latin America, right? So there we go. We can specify age, but we don't have to. And also you can even choose female, male, and non-binary participants, with a caveat that in most of the world countries, in many of the world countries, people are not as comfortable as self-identifying as non-binary participants. So they're not really a lot who self-identify this way, but you can try. So I have a researcher who tries it right now, and she's interested in non-binary participants, or she's trying to sample those kind of people. Now we ask you for your academic credentials. In my case, it would be Florida State University. And then we also, unless you already have your account registered as with your institutional email, we just ask you to indicate it here. And also IRB approval numbers are all different, so there's no universal way to code them, but we ask for this just in case if anything happens, so that we can contact. Now, because it's an early stage product, and I will be very happy if you guys try this year, you can even try using our money, not yours. So there are kind of little things that are not super convenient here. So one of the things that is not yet super convenient is that after you create a project, you cannot really edit it after creation. So you want to make sure that this is how you want it. But even if you don't like something about it, then in the hindsight, you can just go ahead and create another one. So after you create it, there's a little instruction here that tells you how to embed a Qualtrics code. And the instruction, I have it open here. So it's kind of pretty clear, straightforward how to do it. The main thing that you want to do is you want to, in your survey flow, create an embedded data block. The way it works is that it will give you two numbers here, A and B. And what it wants you to do is to set those, create those fields that are named A and B exactly, and then you paste those numbers in here. And let me just go ahead and do that. So my A is, it's a unique number every time. And the way it goes, it's just, the way it works is just generates a code in such a way that both the platform knows it and your participant knows it. So after we do that, we're pretty much all set. And then we can take a Qualtrics link and we can, just checking the button that we have the embedded completion code, launch the survey. It will ask us about if we're okay with the pricing, and let's say we're okay, and we're launching it. So it's pretty easy. And a lot of people have said, like, it's unbelievable that it can be that easy. Do I really get people from Brazil? Do I really get responses from whatever, like Pakistan? And the answer is yes, you do. And to check, like, to prepare for this workshop yesterday, I just actually launched it and got some new responses from, I haven't even looked which country they're coming from, but people are writing something about, with God's help, I will get my degree. So yeah, so like it works. So are there any questions so far?
How do you deal with language issues?
This is a very good question. Actually, I have there's a slide or like a point about that. I always get this question. So if you don't mind, I will answer to this question at the very end, because like it's kind of embedded here. It's an often question that I get. And thank you for it. So, okay, so in terms of setting up the survey, I already showed you like the kind of basics of it. What we recommend doing is creating a separate Qualtrics survey, for example, a clone, just because of this like embedding things, right? Now, make sure that your IRB protocol has the right numbers that match the prices that will be shown to the performer, right? If you need information about the performer's country of residence, you have to ask them in the survey, because we don't share any user data. And then every time you launch a new survey, embed a new completion code, even if you're using the same Qualtrics link. So now there are a couple of points that I find them pretty interesting in terms of how you collect data internationally, more like conceptually. So first of all, and this comes from experience of real researchers who tried that. So one of the things that people ask is like, for example, they're trying to tap some country level effects. A popular approach is people build multi-level models, like hierarchical linear models, and they account for people nested within a country. And then I found a lot of researchers are expecting to have like strong country level effects. What I always recommend is trying to tap this measure on the individual level too. For example, if you're measuring whatever this is, like country level, like wealth or like mortality rates, if there is any way that you can tap this measure, this construct on the level of an individual, go ahead and do that, because country level effects countries are like enormous entities, and like oftentimes there is more variability within a country than between them. So it, like, for your own like nice and small p-value, it makes sense to kind of try and measure the same on the level of a person. Now, one thing that I find beautiful, the very fact that people ask me about that, is I got questions from research from like Ohio State or like UMass. How do we ask them about SES, income, ethnicity, gender? It is tricky not only because those questions are sensitive, they're tricky just because a lot of those things are they just work in a different way. And I'll just give you an example of income. For example, when you ask people in a different country about income, it's not only about changing those brackets, right? So for us in America, the brackets start with like $24,000 a year and less, and then like 25 to like 50 and that kind of stuff, right? So these are the numbers that for most people in the world, they're just crazily high. But it's not only about changing those brackets to being like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. And it's not even about the dollars and the fact that people think in their local currency. That's not even the biggest problem. Like, one of the problems that is not evident is that most of the people in other countries don't think about their annual income as of annual income. Most people have no idea how much they earn in a 12-month period. So in most like unpredictable environments, people would think about their monthly wage, and they don't even have this like planning horizon long enough to think about how much they earn in a year. So if you ask them a question, what is your annual income, they might not even know an answer off the top of their head, or they might be confused about this question. So how do you know this stuff? There's no way for you to know this stuff. So the bottom line is it's okay to get help. So we're like accumulating this expertise about how exactly you are asking people questions that you're interested in, if those people are out of the American context. Oh, ethnicity is my favorite example. So ethnicity in an American sense is 5 ethnicities. In the world sense, it's 650 ethnicities. So when people are saying this, like international participants are seeing this list of like, Native American and then Black African American, they are confused about that. They're like, what is this? Like, I'm not African American, or I'm not like Asian American, and I'm not, So for example, with ethnicity, you probably don't even want to make a drop-down list. So those are just a couple of questions. And I find it beautiful just the mere fact that researchers are starting to face this like vast world out there, right? That works differently from how we're used to it, right? So we also have IRB blurbs that can help you get your protocol approved. And now I have this point about the languages. So Toloka as a data labeling platform does have this option of translation, and it's a pretty good quality AI-based translation. The problem is that, this tool is a little new, so we haven't yet like applied it. We need to see this like strong feedback from researchers. So the way it works right now is that it gets to your surveys have to be in English, and they get to participants with verified English skills. But we realize that it's a kind of like a temporary thing. It's temporary status quo. We're going to change that. There has been a lot of evidence about like how language of questions affects the responses to those questions. It's just right now it's an early stage product, and one of the next steps is apparently adding those translations to the product. Okay, so also about the data quality. So for now, this is still a wild crowd, just like what we saw on MTurk. And we recommend introducing your own attention checks, comprehension checks, adding them open-ended questions, and all of that. And what we've seen from our early adopters is that 10 to 40% of responses are what we call like inattentive or like not diligent enough. But we are starting a partnership with Sentry next week, actually, to measure and then further ensure data quality, because we believe in Sentry. We know it's a great tool. So how to try? You can go ahead and create a requester account in Toloka. There is a special promo code that we created for this event. It's Cloud 2022, and you can get $50 just if you apply. It's in your account. Now, you can also apply for a larger grant, and chances are you'll get it because we are actively seeking feedback from researchers. This QR code is leading you to the page where you can hit apply for a grant and just apply. It's a pretty short form. It's not your typical, like NSF. This is the promo code Cloud 2022 that can help you get like $50. And then here is the QR code if you want to go, and it will actually get you to the same page to Local for Social Sciences, where you can hit a button and apply for a larger grant. And those are small grants, relatively small, but they can buy you almost 800 participants if you have a short survey. So it's not bad, especially for like a pilot study or for the first study to test the waters. We've also been giving $500 to each Cloud Return grant winner, so to all 4 of them, and 3 out of 4 have already claimed them. And now I also have this little thing with a trivia grant of $100. So yes, let's see if there are any questions.
How do you account for things like bartering? Like, I guess when you're taking into account, when you're trying to measure income, if people do like 2 chickens in exchange for 2 baskets of oranges or whatever.
Yes, so what we recommend, that's a very good question. So what we recommend asking is not even the amount of dollars. Well, you can ask both, right? You can ask how much they earn. You can try asking in dollars and in their local currency, if you know for sure which countries you are targeting. And yes, the purchasing power is a very great question. It's like how much your family can afford. Like, what can your family afford? Like this question, we have it in our recommended demographic questions. Like we can afford a car but not a house. Like we can afford food but not clothes. So yeah, this would probably be your best bet in terms of getting a scale that universally applies to all your participants.
And should people use their university emails to sign up, or does it matter?
So if you apply for a grant, you have to use your university associated email, just because we use it to verify grant applicants. But no, on the platform, you can use any email you want.